My grandfather looked me in the eye the day he handed me that check. He said, "This is yours. You earned it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." He arrived without calling. That was the first thing. I opened the door, and he walked straight past me into the kitchen, sat down at my table like he owned it. He said he knew about the check, said Grandpa was old, said he hadn't been thinking clearly, said the money should be split at minimum, and that I knew it. I listened to all of it. Then I said, "No, Daniel." 2 words. He asked me to repeat myself. I said, "No, it was a gift. It's mine. I'm not splitting it." What happened in the next 4 seconds? I have replayed more times than I can count. His face changed. The way a face changes when something older and uglier than the conversation takes over. He stood up and he slapped me. Open hand, hard enough to turn my head, in my own kitchen on a Tuesday morning. I put my hand to my face, looked at him. He was breathing fast. Already I could see it, already slightly aware of what he had just done. He said, "You're being selfish. Grandpa would want." I said, "Get out of my house," very quietly. "Get out, right now, and don't come back." He left. I locked the door, sat down on the kitchen floor, which I am not ashamed to tell you, and stayed there for about 10 minutes, not crying, just breathing. Then I picked up my phone and I called my grandfather. 1 week later, my brother stood in my kitchen, hand out, told me the money should have been his, that Grandpa had made a mistake, that I needed to sign it over. I said no. He slapped me, open hand, across my face in my own kitchen. I did not cry, I did not scream, I did not move. I stood very still, and I looked at him, and in that moment, something shifted in me that has never shifted back. What happened next? My brother did not see coming. My grandfather did. And the thing my grandfather did in the 72 hours that followed made sure my brother would remember that slap for the rest of his life. This is that story. If someone has ever raised their hand to you and believed there would be no consequence, this story is going to feel like justice arriving exactly on time. Subscribe to Quietly Destroyed, hit that like button, and stay with me, because the person who delivers the consequence in this story is not who you expect. My name is Serena, and before I tell you what my brother did, I need to tell you who my grandfather was. His name was Walter, 81 years old, sharp as a blade, the kind of man who noticed everything, said little, and remembered it all. He had built a small manufacturing business in the 1970s, sold it in 2004, lived quietly ever since, not lavishly, quietly, the kind of man who drove the same car for 14 years because it still worked. My grandfather had 2 grandchildren, me and my brother Daniel, and I will be honest with you, we were not treated equally. Not because Grandpa loved one of us more, but because we were not the same kind of people. Daniel had spent the last decade borrowing money he never returned. From our parents, from relatives, from friends who stopped being friends because of it. He had a talent, a genuine, remarkable talent, for making his problems feel like other people's responsibilities. I was different. Not because I was better, but because I had learned early that no one was coming to save me. I had worked since I was 17, paid my own way through university, built a small business, nothing dramatic, a bookkeeping firm, that I ran from my spare bedroom for 4 years before it became something real. My grandfather watched all of this. As I said, he noticed everything last November. On a Sunday afternoon, he called me to his house, poured 2 cups of tea, sat down across from me, and slid a check across the table, $100,000. He said, I've been watching you for a long time, Serena. This is yours. You earned it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I tried to refuse. He put his hand over mine and said, Don't. So I didn't. I drove home with that check in my bag. I did not tell anyone, not my parents, not my friends, no one. I have no idea how Daniel found out, but he did, and 6 days later, he was standing in my kitchen. My grandfather answered on the second ring. I told him what had happened, all of it, calmly, every detail. He did not interrupt, he did not exclaim, he did not say, "Are you all right?" the way most people would. He listened, and when I finished, there was a silence that lasted long enough for me to wonder if the call had dropped. Then he said, very quietly, "Are you hurt?" I said, "No, not really." He said, "Good." Then he said, "I need you to do one thing for me. Don't deposit that check yet. I'll call you tomorrow." I said, "Grandpa, what are you—" He said, "Trust me, go make yourself a cup of tea." I did not sleep well that night. I kept thinking about what he meant, about what a man of 81 with a quiet voice and 40 years of watching people was about to do. He called me the next morning at 8:45. My grandfather had spent the previous evening making 4 phone calls, the first to his solicitor, the second to his financial advisor, the third to my parents, the fourth to Daniel. He told me what he had done in the same tone he used to discuss the weather, methodical, clear, decided. He had called Daniel and told him 3 things. 1, that he was aware of what had happened in my kitchen. 2, that he had spent 40 years building what he had so that it could go to people who deserved it. And 3, that he had that morning instructed his solicitor to update his will. Daniel had been listed as a beneficiary of my grandfather's estate. He was no longer.
My grandfather told me. He raised his hand to my granddaughter, in her own home, over money I gave her. That tells me everything I needed to know about what kind of man he is. I should have known it sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. I did not know what to say. I think I said something like, "Grandpa, you don't have to." He said, "I know I don't have to. I want to. There's a difference." The check was deposited that afternoon. $100,000. Mine. As it had always been. Daniel called me 3 times that day. I let it ring. Twice the next day. I let it ring. My mother called me the day after that, gently, carefully, asking if there was any way to resolve things. I told her, "He hit me, Mum, in my own kitchen. Over money Grandpa gave me. There is nothing to resolve." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I know." And that was the end of it. My grandfather is still alive, still sharp, still driving the same car. He and I have Sunday tea every week without fail. He has never mentioned Daniel's name in any of those conversations, not once. Daniel and I have not spoken since the morning he left my kitchen. That was 14 months ago. I do not know if we will speak again. I do not spend much time thinking about it. What I do think about, sometimes on quiet mornings when I'm at my desk, is the way my grandfather sounded on that phone call. Not angry, not dramatic, just decided. The way someone sounds when they have been watching for a very long time and have finally seen enough. He gave me $100,000. But that is not what he gave me. What he gave me, on that phone call, in that quiet, steady voice, was the knowledge that someone had seen me, clearly, completely, without being asked. That is worth more than any check in any amount. Here is what I want to leave with you. The people who raise their hand to take what isn't theirs are counting on you to be too shocked to move. too afraid to speak, too loyal to act. Don't be. Speak clearly, stand up, and trust that the people who have truly been watching you will not need you to explain a single word. Has someone ever tried to take something that was given to you, something you earned, something you deserved, and believed you would just hand it over? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone today who needs to be reminded that what is yours is yours. Subscribe to Quietly Destroyed. New story every single week. Next week, a woman was written out of her mother's will by a brother who forged a signature. What she found folded inside a Bible on her mother's bedside table. I could not have invented if I tried. I'll see you then.